Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with Tuesday NBA action, along with one Adam Ship My Money Share, as we give you the foundational first look breakdown. I'm choking up, Adam. It's a 10-game slate. I'm choking up because we usually get the lighter days. What's going on here, Adam?
Yeah, I guess it's the last Tuesday before baseball season, so I can suck it up and deal with it. But not excited to write the article about this one.
It'll be a crazy one, but that's why we've got you covered. Not only do you get this foundational podcast, but around 9:15 or so, we've got the NBA DFS strategy show on the YouTube channel. You'll have the deep dive article coming out in the afternoon. You will have the deeper dive show with Laffy and Adam, and then down the home stretch, you've got one Fast Eddie Fair, and I think Tuesday is Chris Bagg. So that'll be a fun one for all you guys. We've got a special guest on the NHL shows this week. Jake Hari is off at a family reunion vacation, so yours truly will be joining Nolan Kelly for a second show on Tuesday afternoon. We will also be going Thursday and Friday. That's at 4 o'clock on the YouTube channel. So a lot of fun there. Adam, I dusted it off. DK's kind of fun. It tells you how many days you've played something on these little milestone contests. And I've played almost 40 days for hockey. I hadn't realized I'd been playing that much. It was surprising, shall we say.
Yeah, time flies.
Yes, yours says 1 day or 0 days?
Zero.
Well, you had more productive things to do over the NBA All-Star break. All right, let's jump right in here. We've got all sorts of news and notes, so we'll probably stumble off some of it here and there. We know that Zach LaVine is going to be out. We know that Kyrie Irving is out. We know that Luka Doncic is carrying that questionable tag. He is coming off a magnificent performance, shall we say, against Golden State, where the Mavericks, of all people, absolutely crushed the Golden State Warriors. Elfrid Payton is dealing with a sore wrist. We know that we know that New Orleans is not really interested in winning, so who knows what's going to happen there. Looking at Miami, Justice Winslow is someone that we will want to, keep an eye on, but he's been dealing with oh God, now it says he has food poisoning as well, Adam. The hits just keep on coming. Rodney McGruder is going to be out for a few more days, so we know all about that. Brogdon's out. What do we got here as we kick around? Eric Gordon, questionable. We know that in theory, Houston wants to give their guys a little bit of rest if they can down the stretch, but they're in the thick of things in the Western Conference with seeding, so we'll have to see what happens. They've been relatively good, and we haven't been really surprised by anyone, but just, keep that in mind, that what may be a dicey play in the morning could be a good one, as there should be plenty of discount dandies opening up. Otto Porter's still going to be out. LeBron James has been dealing with, well, in theory, rest, but he has said he doesn't want to insult the game, Adam. So he's taking on the Washington Wizards. This one is in LA. Now, essentially, Los Angeles almost plays close to every other game, home or away, and then the couple that are the adjacent away games or home games have days of rest in between. So I have a feeling we're going to see him on all the home games, and then if he's going to rest, I would suspect it happens on the road. But the problem is I don't know what to do with him for minutes. Are we down to giving him, 32, 35? But he's been playing wildly efficient lately. That's, I don't know. Welcome to March basketball. Let's see. Anthony Davis, be a game time. Well, he'll be a game day decision to decide if he's going to really have a back injury or if he's going to play. That one is at home against Atlanta. I suspect he'll play on the home games down the stretch. Al Horford still dinged up. He was out the last game and dealing with a knee injury. So he last played on the 20th. I think that's most of the main ones. I'm sure we'll discover a few more, Adam, as we go through the old positions here. Any other major ones that popped out? Taj Gibson, not really major, but
No, I think you got him.
all right. So, that's a lot to digest. Of course, we know all sorts of things are going to change as news comes out around shoot around. That's why we have projections updated constantly. We have the The roster percentages updated constantly, colloquially known as ownership percentage, but that's all behind the paywall. Get the good stuff. Get the Osmo Premium. Jump in on that full premium package, and you'll get 30 days of baseball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR. We've got it all. NHL, everything coming down the stretch. If you use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, you get 50% off. Adam, I'm turning this over to you. Point guard, the world is your oyster. Take it away.
Yeah, so I mean, you start with Trae Young in another great matchup against New Orleans, coming off a monster game against Philadelphia. He is not the Rookie of the Year over Luka Doncic, but he is.
But you mentioned
really
him first, so you have to like him more than Luka. That's what the listeners are going to say.
Yeah, I'm just saving Luka for shooting guard, but Trae Young in a great spot here. Really fast-paced game between Atlanta and New Orleans. A really poor New Orleans defense. Elfrid Payton is questionable, which would make them even worse defensively if he's out in the backcourt at least. But yeah, I mean, Trae Young's just been playing really, really well now that he's gotten his feet under him in the NBA. I think that he is pretty clearly a strong play to build around with his price tag still, relatively cheap, sitting at $8,200 on DraftKings. So he stands out there. Elfrid Payton on the other side of that matchup, questionable, but if he plays, you assume you're going to get, low to mid 30s from him in a really nice spot against Atlanta. So he would be a strong play for me. Chris Paul's price tags finally started to come up, so he's a bit less appealing, though it is a pace up spot for Houston. But I think the 2 point guards that really stand out are, Trae and Payton, as far as mid-range guys go. Also, obviously Terry Rozier without Kyrie Irving should play into the 30s in minutes against Cleveland.
All right. We do have Chris Dunn listed as doubtful, but his return is not expected for a couple more days. Does that do anything for you with regards to Arcidiacono or Shaq Harrison?
I mean, they both should get a lot of minutes. It's still Shaq Harrison and Arcidiacono in a tough matchup against Toronto. Harrison has averaged about 0.8 points per minute without Zach LaVine on the floor this season. So, if he's going to get 35 or 36 minutes, he's a perfectly reasonable point per dollar value play. But with all the news that we're waiting on this slate, I expect something better will open up. And the same thing really goes for Arcidiacono. He should play around 34 minutes. He's not a particularly efficient fantasy point producer, but without Dunn or LaVine on the floor, or Porter for that matter, he should be more productive than usual. So I think that just from a minute standpoint, they both stand out as quality value options.
All right, let's see. It is a Tuesday. Nobody sat in the last Toronto game. Toronto, as you mentioned, is taking on Chicago. Who do you think is going to sit for Toronto? Kawhi or Lowry?
Neither. Why is one of them sitting?
Because they always rest. There's no more back-to-back, so now I'm assuming they're just going to take easiest opponent game off.
Yeah, it's possible.
This looks like one of them. So anyway, point being, stay cognizant of that. We'll have to see what happens. It's wild. Anything can change. So we're just keeping some cursory reviews here. I will have the Fred Van Elite Fan Club posted. I will play Fred Van Vliet regardless. So there is always that. Shout out to Seth, who won the contest on Sunday. I took 10th, Adam. I took 10th. Last cash spot. But shout out to Seth. He also took down the $4,000 PGA contest on FanDuel. So good for him. Moving on here to shooting guard. This is where you get Luka Doncic. You also have one Bradley Beal. James Harden comes into the mix carrying a lofty price tag. He had... On the season, Adam, he has scored less than 40 fantasy points 3 times, I believe is what it is. He only had 41 on Sunday, so that was a little disappointing. What do you like here at the 2 guard?
Yeah, so I mean, it starts with Luka for me. It's still sitting at 8,500 on DraftKings in a huge pace-up spot against Sacramento. He's listed as questionable, but assuming he goes, he just stands out as an absolutely phenomenal play for me because we know how high his ceiling is. He continues to average between 1.3 and 1.4 fantasy points per minute. He is a triple-double threat every time he takes the floor. He's a $10,000 player who is continuously listed in the mid $8,000 on DraftKings for no real reason. On FanDuel, he's more expensive and has been for a while, but still a really good play there, just not as egregiously priced as he is on DraftKings. The guys around him at the top, you have Beal in a favorable matchup against the Lakers, but I continue to expect his minutes to be more in the 36-minute range than the 38 to 40. And with his price tag being as high as it is, it makes it a little bit tough. James Harden at 11.4 will really depend on what value opens up on the slate. There's enough quality mid-range plays right now that I think I would prefer 2 upper mid-range guys to like a Harden plus, Shaq Harrison combo or something like that. But if better value opens up, as it probably will, then getting to Harden obviously becomes easier.
All right. Kind of looking at a couple in the mid-tier that caught my eye. Frank Jackson gets a nice matchup there against Atlanta. He has been... Well, for him, it's all about the shooting and the number of shots he's taking. And in his last 8 games, it's been 16, 17, 17, 13, 13, 18, 18, and 20. So that's also coincides with him starting. Now, that's pretty much all he does. And he's not the best shooter, but he's also playing in the mid to upper 30s for minutes. But wait for it, the other shoe is now going to drop. He has only topped 30 fantasy points 3 times in that 8-game stretch. So your mileage may vary, but this is the cherry matchup that we want to look at. And then the other guy was Jordan Clarkson. Going against Boston, not the best matchup. As we mentioned, Kyrie Irving is listed out, and then Horford is questionable. Cleveland's been a little frisky lately. They've made things closer down the stretch in games than I think their opponents would like, and that does include at home actually beating Milwaukee and Detroit. That was 3 games ago and 4 games ago. They lost to the Clippers by 2, and then they got rolled in Milwaukee by 20. We'll do some math here, 22. But they've been keeping it closer, and a lot of it's had to do with Clarkson here, Adam. I mean, he's scoring in the upper teens for points every game. He's getting a handful of boards, handful of assists, which is nice and still reasonably priced. It's the minutes that are pretty secure. I'm guessing you're going to probably project him for around 31, maybe 32 minutes. Do you like Clarkson or anybody else before we move to small forward?
Clarkson's okay. I obviously don't like the matchup against Boston. I think I'd rather save a little bit of money and go to like a Derek White or even a Pat Beverly. But, certainly a reasonable tournament option just based on the ceiling. I just think that I'll have White projected a little bit better. Really appealing matchup he's a small forward on FanDuel, but Troy Brown at 4,700 coming off of a, disappointing game against Miami and even a relatively disappointing game the night before that in his first start without Ariza, but now he gets a pace-up spot against the Lakers. I think that he's someone we can go back to as a value play as well.
And I'm assuming you may have watched some of the games if you haven't completely abandoned the Wizards, but I watched him this weekend. He looks functional and decent. It reminds me of, wait for it, a young Kelly Oubre, if you will. But he is totally a functional player. And sometimes you get some of these cheap guys and you're like, yeah, now I know why you're the 8th, 9th man in a rotation, if you even get that, or you get the random DNPs interspersed. He was good in his time with the Washington. Do you know what the Washington G League team's name is?
I have no idea.
The Washington Go-Go's.
Actually, yeah. All right, yeah, I've heard that.
Something to do with go-go dancing, not go-go girl dancing. There's this thing in DC called go-go dancing. It's like, I would have called it more like house dancing or hip-hop, but it's this thing that's just been a DC area staple for many years. So I actually read up on this when I was researching.
Genre of music, basically.
It's what?
Basically like a genre of music.
Oh yes, John. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, and it was a fun story. But I was like, what the hell? What the Go-Go's? Where's that come from? But anyway, we've gotten sidetracked. You know what I wish I would have been sidetracked on? From not playing about 70% Jaylen Brown on Sunday. Adam, his last 4 games, 8 fantasy points, 48 fantasy points, 11 fantasy points, and 15 fantasy points. No Kyrie Irving. How are you feeling about Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, I got away with not having a ton of him on Sunday. I had a lot, just not as much as everyone else, so that was nice. But, obviously an appealing matchup against Cleveland. The price tag is still pretty nice at 4,900. Came up a little bit. I think he's fine. He's not someone that I'm in love with. I think a lot will depend on ownership for me. I don't feel as confident at a $4,900 price tag that if he's 30% owned again, that I need to be overweight on a 10-game slate. But if everyone is, running the other direction, I think it's a, really nice bounce back spot.
Remember how this reminded me to go check on Terry Rozier and say, why didn't I mention Terry Rozier? Because he's 6,800.
I mentioned him.
Oh, did you? Okay. And then I thought, well, why is he so high? And I went back and looked, and he hasn't produced a ton. But I'm actually glad they've kept his price, at least on DraftKings, up there, just with Kyrie being hurt. Because remember those first couple of games when Kyrie was out, what was it, a few months ago? He was just the windmill slam 80% owned guy at like 5,000 or 4,600 or whatever it was on DraftKings for 2 games. But kudos to them for keeping him relatively priced up there. Back to small forward here. Again, we have LeBron at the top. You've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. They're going against Houston. Crucial game for both Milwaukee, who is fighting to stay in the first or second seed there in the playoffs, and same thing with Houston. So, is this one? Do you think Houston may concede a little bit and just say, yeah, this is a tough one, we're going to have to win some different ones? Or do you think they're going to use this as a measuring stick, Adam?
I assume they go out and try and win. They're only 4-point dogs on the road, so basically a pick 'em in terms of, actual who would win on a neutral floor. So, I think that Giannis is excuse me, a pretty appealing option. Played 31 and a half minutes against Cleveland, but lost a few minutes in a blowout. I would expect him to play around 33, 34 minutes if Houston hangs in this one. And he continues to produce nearly 1.8 DraftKings points per minute. So kind of like Harden, if good value opens up, then I really, really like getting to Giannis. I think that he carries a little bit more appeal than Harden as well, simply because of the position that he plays. But if value doesn't open or stays, kind of questionable, then I think saving $1,100 and going to LeBron, who, despite being on a 32-minute limit, continues to play 35 minutes in competitive games, has a phenomenal matchup against Washington.
Yeah, and that's a good call. And I was able to get the page up here. So I did want to say Houston is just one game, and the Portland-Brooklyn game is not yet tipped off as we record this Monday night. But Houston is just one game ahead of Portland. They're 3 ahead of the Clippers before they would fall into the 5th seed and not get home court advantage. And the Bucks, I hadn't realized they'd gone up here, but it makes sense because the Raptors dropped their last 2 games and the Bucks won their last 2 games, but they have a 4-game lead for the number 1 seed. So they will likely protect that. And then you're right, I don't think this would be one where Houston's going to be resting anyone here. And then spots 5, 6, 7, and 8 are separated by 1 game in the Western Conference bottom half of the bracket. So that as that continues to shuffle, it's like Russian roulette. Who's going to have to play the Warriors and the Nuggets? So that'll be interesting down the stretch. Looking just at a couple names to throw out in the cheap line here. Did you see Jeremy Lamb's shot?
Yeah, that was incredible.
I watched it like 6 times, and I don't even know how he really saw where the basket was. It was such a high arcing shot. It was a true 3/4 court shot.
Yeah.
It didn't bank. I mean, it was just like a rainbow. And I'm still in awe of it. And I kept trying to see, well, how would you have known it was going to go in? How did he even know where the basket was? There you go. It was something that was phenomenal. But he's all the way up to 6,200. He's going against the Spurs, but the Charlotte Hornets are half a game, 1.5 games behind the Magic, 2 behind the Heat. So they're not mathematically eliminated yet. They've won their last 3. So I'm curious to see what you think about Charlotte here for Jeremy Lamb. That's really about the only appealing person that we have until we get news on other stuff. And then there'll probably be 6 or 7 down here in the low tier because there's a lot of mid-priced people in decent matchups. But whichever one's going to get a boost in minutes, that's the one we're going to want to hone in on.
Yeah, I don't really want to attack San Antonio all that much on a 10-game slate. It's just a slow team that plays quality defense. Lamb's price tag, I think, is pretty appropriate. Miles Bridges' price tag has come up enough to where I think, he's okay, but there's not a ton of extra value there. Pretty unappealing position here in the mid-range. I would much rather use Shaq Harrison or Troy Brown at this position than at the point guard or shooting guard positions.
Yeah, and that's a fair one because it's less than inspiring names. I mean, you got Harrison Barnes. Well, yay! How often does Harrison Barnes top anything in the mid-30s if he's even getting in the low 20s? You've got Evan Fournier. He's hit or miss. Tough matchup against Miami. You got Josh Okogie. he of the empty stat lines, but every now and then tricks us by making 70% of his shots in a game. So we think he's reasonable. There's just a lot of different players here. So we'll know more as the day breaks. And again, you're going to have 3 shows covering this down the stretch on Tuesday. Moving on to power forward here. We've already mentioned Giannis, LeBron, but we do have Kevin Love at 7,600. Julius Randle in this fine matchup here against Atlanta. The one concerning thing about Randle, he's played 26 and 22 minutes in the last 2 games. So do you have any background by looking at the game logs for that? Because it does not appear that he was in foul trouble, because he's only had 3 in 4 of his last 5 games. He's only had 3 fouls. So.
Well, they were blown out by Houston. He didn't play at all in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
If you give him the 8 minutes that he got in the second quarter, if you give him those in the fourth quarter, he gets right up to his 34 minutes that he normally gets. So that was the most recent game that they played. Where? And then do you have the date for the one before that?
Yes, it's the 20th, and it was against Orlando in Orlando.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Also a 24-point loss. Randle was in early foul trouble, actually. He picked up 2 fouls in his first stint, came back to start the second quarter, basically immediately picked up a 3rd foul, so he sat the rest of the second quarter. He played nearly the entire 3rd quarter, and then he didn't play at all in the 4th in what was a 35-point game. So nothing to be concerned about there with Randle, I don't think.
Okay, perfect, because we're going to have salary cap, and he's one of the guys. I want to look to some of these guys in the Atlanta game and definitely trust him a little more than Anthony Davis, who's going to continue to play his, what is it still, is he still on his 22-minute streak? No, it's ticked down. It's now barely 21. They're shaving a couple seconds off each time he plays, Adam. Pretty soon he's not going to play at all. What do we do with Davis? Last Pelly that we're going to talk about.
I don't think we need to get there on this particular slate. It is obviously an appealing game, a good matchup. But we've talked about how his price tag is low enough that he becomes a relatively decent point per dollar option. But he would just have to produce a basically impossible amount of points per minute to be a top raw points option. And you're talking about a 10-game slate where you have guys around him like Lauri Markkanen, like Pascal Siakam, like Marvin Bagley, who are going to play so many more minutes. And then you have cheaper guys that you can get to as well. So really no interest in going to Davis in this one. I'd much rather find $900 for 34 minutes of Julius Randle.
Okay. John Collins on the other side here. In his last game, he did play 30 minutes. Game before that, 27, but he had 6 fouls. He fouled out against Utah and then took on Philadelphia. Didn't get a single foul. Goodness, I don't really know what to make of that. A little bit of a random variance, but he's someone who's in play. And then LaMarcus Aldridge decided to pack 2.5 games worth of production in one game on the Sunday early slate, and he dropped 48 points, 13 boards, 6 assists, Adam, 31 field goals. Wow, that is just a ton, and that was as San Antonio was taking Boston to the woodshed in Boston. Do you like either of those guys? Perhaps a slightly resurgent Lauri Markkanen?
Yeah, I like both of them. Aldridge, the price tag's still appealing. He's another guy where he's only 700 more than Davis, and you should get 14 or 15 more minutes in a nice spot against a pretty weak Charlotte front court. John Collins against a really weak New Orleans front court. It's a strong play as well. And then Markkanen, he's had his issues lately, but you're talking about no Levine, no Dunn, no Porter. It could make him very inefficient, but he's going to have all the opportunities in the world to produce in this offense. I'm trying to quickly pull up and see if we have any sort of sample size without these guys on the floor. But even if we don't, you kind of know you're going to get a monster usage rate from Markkanen. The problem is just that he doesn't really create for himself, and you're going to be relying on some combination of Arcidiacono and Shaq Harrison to be setting up Lauri Markkanen, which obviously isn't great. He's actually played 124 minutes without any of Portis, Parker, Dunn, Porter, or Levine on the floor this season. He has a 29.1% usage rate. He has averaged just over 1 fantasy point per minute. Not surprisingly, his effective field goal percentage is 40.9%. Again, it's only 124 minutes, so that's not gospel, but it does go with what we would kind of expect to happen when he's the only player on the court that can score.
All right. Pascal Siakam has been solid. Price keeps inching up, but he is an intriguing option. Kyle Kuzma gets to go against the Wizards. He is, I don't know if he's somebody I want to trust, but at least we do know he has the ability to get 40 fantasy points, particularly on that short slate. He is an interesting guy. Montrez Harrell is disappointing is not the right word. He's put up 30 fantasy points in each of his last two, but that's coming off a 4-game stretch where he crested over the 40 fantasy point plateau in those 4 games. I like him against Minnesota. We know that Taj Gibson is out. They are literally running out of bodies in Minnesota at this point.
Yeah, were you talking about Sarge?
No, sorry. Montrez.
Oh, okay, so you're talking about
the opponent.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, now I'm with you.
We're gonna get to Sarge, I promise.
Well, I was just like, why are okay? Yeah, no, now I'm following. Harrell's fine. My problem is just it comes down to a minutes thing again, where he's in that price range with Aldridge and Collins and Markkanen and Randall. Well, kind of Randall, but Kevin Love. Like, he's not going to get quite as many minutes as most of those guys. And then you also have the cheaper guys from the Wizards in a phenomenal matchup against the Lakers. Thomas Bryant, I think, is one of the top values on the slate still. His price tags come up to 5,200, but you've gotten 36 minutes or 35 or 36 minutes in back-to-back games since he rejoined the starting lineup. It's a great spot against his former Lakers team in LA. And then Bobby Portis, should play anywhere between 30 and 36 minutes. Obviously a wide range there, but a really, really productive player on a per minute basis, and he's $1,000 less than Harrell is.
All right, I do want to clarify this. Taj Gibson has not officially been ruled out. He's listed as questionable, but he did not play on Saturday with the calf strain. They're unsure of his status, but it's not a slam dunk out, so I do want to keep that in mind. But again, they're still running out of bodies, and it's not like he's going to be 100%. So Saric there, but let's use that to pivot on over to the center position here. Adam, Karl Anthony Towns against the Clippers. Don't really see an answer awaiting him on the other side defensively. So I think Towns is going to be one of my favorite players. The problem we run into, there's a tasty menu of options here with Jokic. You've got Vooch, tougher matchup against Miami, but on DK he gets the $8,900 price tag. You've got Drummond, $8,700 going against Denver. Let's see, who's some other center only. Clint Capella going against Milwaukee. Not sure I like that one, but definitely he is going to be at least in the player pool. And then you got a discounted Thomas Bryant going against JaVale McGee. And oh, hey, wait for it. You got JaVale McGee going against Thomas Bryant. Start at the top with Karl Anthony Towns. You liking this particular spot for him?
Yeah, I love Towns here. It's obviously a good matchup. It's a pace-up spot against the Clippers. It's a soft Clippers front court that's going to have no answer for him defensively. And even though there are some big names on the slate, like you said, they're not in appealing matchups, while as Towns is. He's averaged about 1.65 points per minute without Teague or Rose on the floor this season since the Jimmy Butler trade. And you compare a favorable matchup and that kind of production to Jokic in a pace down spot against Detroit, and with that team fully healthy, he doesn't average. He's closer to 1.45 or 1.5 points per minute. Vooch on a back-to-back in a bad spot against Miami. The price tag certainly is appealing, but I give Towns the edge there. Drummond not in the best spot against Denver. Again, an appealing price tag, but it's not like Towns is super expensive either. The two guys in the mid-range you mentioned from that Washington game, I agree, those are both good plays. I already talked about really liking Thomas Bryant, but JaVale McGee, even with a rising price tag, does still give you plenty of upside when you're talking about a Washington team that can't rebound, can't play defense. There's still a lot to like there. It's just that, he's 1,300 more than Thomas Bryant, which I think keeps him from being like the top play in the mid-range.
Yeah, that when he set a career high in points and rebounds in the same game and had his, I think it was the third or fourth most minutes he'd ever played in his career, and it was, what was it, like 34, and he's been in the league for 10 years. That was just kind of one of those games. Yeah, 34 and a half minutes in that game, 33 points, 20 rebounds, 6 blocks. He had just over 70 fantasy points there. Laid down a monster, and that's impressive to get points and rebounds career high in the same game that far into your career, because he's had his moments where he's done high teens in boards or, upper 20s in points, but never put it all together. I was not on that side at all, Adam. That was the night of Tyler Dorsey and Valanciunas and Wright. So if you had those guys and were on a site that let you play more than one center and you had Joe Val, you had a pinball score there. Anything else you want to mention before we get on out of here?
No, I think that's about it. Just from a roster construction standpoint, looking at DraftKings, again, it's kind of weird. So I still think center is a position where I'm going to get like two centers in a lot of lineups, but I think it's actually going to be because of power forwards more so than true centers, which means that on FanDuel, there is less opportunity cost at the center position than usual because it seems like the power forward position is actually a little bit stronger.
Okay. That's something for all of us to keep in the back of our mind as we start to make those shell lineups. We will have the Cash Game Building Block article will be out around noon. That is free on the Awesemo homepage. You will also get the Switch and Hedge from one Chris Spags. And then, of course, the good stuff all behind the paywall. We're just giving you a taste there in front, but the really good stuff is behind. So help us keep the lights on. Give Awesemo a try. Use promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word. Get 50% off any 1 month package. With that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMac DFS, and it is Awesemo_COM. Good luck, gamers.